I felt like I was being watched.
Rhea Sanka falls from a cliff and dies instantly, but is brought back to life as a zombie due to a potion our very ugly and useless protagonist Chihiro makes. Chihiro, a first-year student of Shiyu High, sits on the floor in the corner of his room as he watches a zombie movie. But he gets sad when the humans kill the zombies because he has always loved zombies, and even his friends think he's dumber than a solar-powered flashlight. Good God, imagine if this guy was in the Walking Dead series, he wouldn't pass the intro before turning. He lives in a historic temple with his dad, sister, grandpa, and a stray cat called Babu. His mom died when he was a kid, so he has no memory of her. One day, the cat got run over by Carkun right in front of him, and for the first time in his life, he felt the pain of losing someone. He buried the cat, and while he was mourning, his little sister, Mero, asked if children from the temple had to stay strong when something like this happens. Then she bent down beside her brother and cried a little. I hope things don't go any further than that because we all know what happens next. The incident made Chihiro wonder how something like that could happen. He remembered that he has an old manuscript that is based on the art of resurrection, and that's when he got a crazy idea. He takes Babu's corpse, puts it on ice, and goes to an old abandoned building to perform the ritual. He hears footsteps from outside and sees a girl screaming, and the next thing is him waking up in the morning. Before he goes to school, he puts some ice in the cooler that he put the cat's corpse in. I hope no one opened that cooler for a cold drink that day, because instead of a cold beer, they would see a cold kitty just like my ex. On his way to school, his friend expresses how sad he is that they attend an all-boys school, and the all-girls school next to them has a new student, the principal's daughter. Back home, a young girl, Ranko, makes a delivery and asks for Chihiro. His dad tells her that he's been sleeping a lot since Babu passed, so she goes up to his room to try and cheer him up. He asks about the new girl in her school, but she doesn't know anything about her. Before she leaves, she borrows another zombie movie from him. Later that night, Chihiro goes back to the abandoned building to continue preparations for the ritual, but doesn't seem to be making much progress. He hears footsteps and goes to check who it is. He sees the principal's daughter, Rhea, regretting why she was born into her family. She notices Chihiro listening to her as they both see each other, and she begs him not to tell anyone, and he agrees. She asks why he's there, and he tells her his plan to resurrect Babu. He tells her why he's doing it, and although this plan sounds more hilarious than a bicycle on a treadmill, she says she wants to help as she would love to give her love to an animal since she can't have one because of her dad's obsession with cleanliness. He tells her to become a zombie to help, and she gets scared even though he's just teasing her. She tells him that she hasn't been in a relationship before and asks if he has, but he has no interest in girls and he wants a zombie as his girlfriend, but it's hard to find one. Rhea tells him she's willing to become a zombie if he'll take responsibility. Rhea watches a zombie movie for the first time ever as Chihiro prepares a concoction. He runs out of ideas on what plants to use, and the manuscript is pretty messed up, like a toddler's attempt at modern art, so he can't see the instructions and ingredients well. Rhea asks what's gonna happen to Babu, and he says they'll bury him, or maybe she should eat the corpse. He meant it as a joke, but Rhea, who couldn't detect a joke if it danced in front of her wearing a neon sign, takes it seriously. She suddenly gets an idea and dashes out. As she's running, she trips a little, giving gravity a temporary victory, and the wind mischievously blows her skirt up, revealing her undies.
Yeah, boy.
Chihiro clearly saw but pretended not to because the last thing he needed was for her to be embarrassed and turn his life into a melodramatic anime episode. Rhea narrates how her childhood was and her dad's abnormal obsession with her. Every year for her birthday, her father takes pictures of her, and she only understands how abnormal it is now that she's grown. Her father and his subordinates watch her most of the time, even when she's in school. As she walks to class, her friend runs up to her and they greet each other before going to class. When they get back home, Rhea explains what her father does on her birthday and her friend advises her to make her father stop doing it. Chihiro gets tired of waiting for her to get back, so he goes out to look for her and sees her outside climbing a rock. He runs to help her before she slips from the rock. They get back to the base, and Rhea tells him why she was climbing. He tells her that she's too reckless and could have died if she fell, but she says she knows that if she dies, he'll bring her back to life as a zombie. He never said he's gonna do that because he hasn't even been able to bring Babu back to life, so she politely tells him to. Rhea goes to her dad's office and tells him to stop doing what he has always been doing to her because it's not normal. He refuses and asks if anyone said anything to her. He walks towards her and tries to put his hand on her face before walking out. The next day in school, rumors fly around that Ria's friend has been transferred to another school, and she immediately knew that it's her father's doing. She runs to her friend's house and sees her carrying her cat in a cage. She angrily tells Ria that she knows that her father is the cause of what's happening, and she regrets ever being friendly with Ria. Her father has her in the studio again to take pictures of her. She concludes that she'd rather stay miserable than bring misfortune to others and let her father do his crazy act. Back in the base, Ria gives Chihiro the plant she picked so he can make the potion. He grinds and mixes it with other ingredients, and while he gets Babu, Ria adds a secret ingredient. It didn't work, so they gave up and planned to bury Babu. On the road to Reia's mansion, Chihiro drops her off and sneaks back inside. Unfortunately, her father saw the both of them. On getting home, Chihiro sees his cousin, and she starts to interrogate him because he's been acting suspicious since Babu died. She held him down and opened the cooler just for Babu to jump out and leap into the distance. Ria gets depressed that her father will never let her leave the house again, so she decides to end her life. Ria's father continuously hit her while telling her that he'll never let her see anyone again, which made her drink a potion to end her life, but it didn't work. She wakes up the next morning and lives her life as usual. Her mother talked to her in a cold manner for sneaking out yesterday, and her father apologized for hitting her yesterday. He noticed she's wearing her school uniform, so he tells her to go change because she'll be homeschooled from now on. Her father's henchman stood by the door a bit so she could leave the room for them to discuss. Ria goes out of the room but stands outside so she can hear what they're talking about. She hears the henchman telling her father that he already got information about Chihiro, and her father tells him to go castrate him so he wouldn't be able to go near his daughter again. It was at this point that I began to fear for our boy's life. Chihiro, along with his sister and cousin, stands outside trying to get zombie Babu to get down from the tree, but you don't bring back a cat from the dead and expect it to have the same personality. Ranko tells Chihiro about the dangers of having a zombie cat, but he ignores her, saying there's a low possibility of it actually happening. She tells him that the whole thing is immoral, especially because he's the son of a priest and they even live in a temple, but if there's one thing we know, it's that children don't like following in there. Babu jumps down from the tree and runs away, so Chihiro starts to chase it. Ranko couldn't let him go alone, so she runs after him, leaving Mero with his school bag. Their grandpa came out because he heard a lot of noise, and Mero told him what her brother did. He didn't seem bothered and even laughed about it. Babu leads Chihiro to a riverside, which seems familiar. Chihiro's friends Mogi and Yatsutaka sit in a corner having a discussion about who knows what while their mates play baseball. Suddenly, they see Ria outside the fence looking like she's on a mission. She asks for Chihiro, but they tell her that he didn't come to school today, probably off doing something weird again. She leaves and heads towards the base where they usually meet, the secret hangout that's not so secret anymore. Chihiro follows Babu to the bottom of a cliff filled with the plant Ria got for the potion, and Babu starts munching on the leaves like it's his last meal. Chihiro notices that it's the same plant that Ria injured herself trying to get, making this whole zombie adventure feel like a twisted botany class. As Ria walks along the cliff trying to get to the base, she spots her father and his henchmen lurking behind her like villains from a bad soap opera. Her father walks up and tries to touch her, saying he's still willing to forgive her, but she smacks his hand away and demands her freedom. Meanwhile, Chihiro is at the bottom of the cliff, witnessing the drama unfold like a reality TV show. Her father refuses and starts dragging her away, but Babu charges at them, probably thinking he's in some zombie cat action movie. Ria recognizes Babu, but her father freaks out because he's allergic to cats, a phobia that seems laughably ironic right now. He takes out a whip and tries to hit Babu, but ends up hitting Ria instead, causing her to tumble to the bottom of the cliff. Chihiro can't believe what just happened, his brain doing somersaults. Before he can start crying, Ria stands up with her guts hanging out like a scene from a zombie flick, and tells him to take responsibility like he promised. Ria's father is happy that she's still alive, but Ria tells him that he's no longer his daughter because she has been reborn. Her father sits in the tub feeling sad that he lost his daughter. When his wife heard the news, she stormed into the bathroom and asked what happened. He mutters words which she didn't understand, and his henchman said Ria is probably with Chihiro. On hearing that name, Ria's father gets up from the tub, vows to get his daughter back and cleanse her of evil. Chihiro sits with Rhea in his room, assisting her in dressing her wound. She's good at sewing, so she used that knowledge to patch herself up, looking like a bizarre arts and crafts project gone wrong. She doesn't seem bothered that she's now a zombie, but Chihiro, who is obsessed with zombies, seems really bothered. Oh, the irony. He starts stating the obvious. She feels cold, has no pulse, looks very cold, and her pupils are dilated. Chihiro gets confused and wonders if she's going to be living off him from now on, which is pretty ironic given his zombie fascination. Rhea looks outside and draws Chihiro's attention to Babu, who's now back to his usual self like nothing ever happened. It seems that Rhea can now understand Babu probably because they're both zombies. Talk about bonding over shared experiences. Rhea notices the look on Chihiro's face and asks if he wants her to act more like a zombie. He goes on to ask why she isn't bothered, and she says it's because he's going to take responsibility, making him feel like he signed up for the world's weirdest babysitting job. She wants him to let her do things she couldn't do as a human. She grabs onto his shoulder with her newly acquired strength and moves in to kiss him, but just before she can, Ranko calls his name from outside. Her timing impeccable as always. Chihiro doesn't want Ranko to know about Rhea, so he goes down to meet her. They both head to the riverside where she scolds him for abandoning her while chasing Babu, adding to his already overflowing plate of problems. Yakatsuka calls out to Chihiro and runs towards him. He begs her to introduce him to Rhea. It was at that moment he realized that he has always wanted a zombie girlfriend, and now he has one. Back home, Rhea decides to go take a shower, and as she does, Chihiro's grandpa enters the bathroom and jumps at her, thinking it's his late wife that resurrected. She freaks out and runs back to the room. Chihiro gets back and sees Rhea laying on the floor with only a towel covering her. She says she feels like her body's stiffening, and Chihiro realizes that she may be alive, but her body's already dead. Chihiro puts Rhea on the bed and starts to brainstorm ways to preserve her body, feeling like he's in some macabre science experiment. The next morning, he goes to his sister's room to ask for a book she has on preserving corpses. She says her friend borrowed it, because what kind of middle schooler reads such a book?
You don't find that suspicious?
She asks why he wants it, but he tells her not to worry. He returns to his room and uses a marker to write a sign on his door. Do not enter. Like that's going to stop anyone in a family full of curiosity. Their dad calls them down for breakfast, and Chihiro starts looking for a way to hide Rhea. He puts her in his closet and notices that she's hungry due to the sounds coming from her stomach, reminiscent of a horror movie soundtrack. He heads down to have breakfast with his family, his mind racing with how to keep his secret. Meanwhile, Ranko finishes delivering a package when a schoolmate jumps out of the bushes and startles her, asking about Rhea because she's been absent from school for a while. It's an off day from school, so Rhea and his sister try to clean the temple. Their dad notices a cat he thinks looks just like Babu and asks Chihiro about it. Chihiro, trying to keep it casual, tells him that he brought Babu back to life. His grandpa is thrilled, thinking Babu and his wife Sada are back to life, and starts laughing maniacally. Chihiro joins in nervously until his grandpa mentions the world would appreciate his resurrection pills. Chihiro gets confused and asks his grandpa if he's really the one who made the pills, but his grandpa with his short-term memory issues doesn't remember. Chihiro tries to make a quick exit, but his dad insists he has to finish cleaning first, adding yet another chore to his already bizarre day. Mero tells Chihiro that she's going to clean his room, and he agrees, but he suddenly remembers that he has a zombie in there and tells her not to worry because he already cleaned it, an obvious lie, but he agreed. Ranko comes over and tells Chihiro that the Sanko family is in uproar because their daughter Rhea is missing. She starts to imagine scenarios and says she probably ran away because she found love. As she was about leaving, she remembers that she wants to borrow a movie, so she goes to Chihiro's room. As she searches for a movie to take, she notices a strand of hair that she's sure doesn't belong to Chihiro, but doesn't see anyone. Suddenly, Rhea jumps down on her and pins her to the ground. She starts to caress her bosoms and rips her cloths. Ranko screams, making Chihiro run to his room. On seeing what's happening, he pulls Rhea of Ranko. Rhea grabs him and kisses him as they both fall to the ground. As Rhea kisses Chihiro, he realizes that she's unconscious and unaware of what she's doing. Ranko starts to shout at Chihiro and asks what Rhea is doing in her room injured, as there was a blood stain on the towel she wore. She looks at Rhea and realizes that she's a zombie too. She starts to attack Chihiro and accuses him of murdering Rhea for his experiment. She throws objects at him and continuously beats him as she threatens to call the police. Chihiro tries to explain what happened, but she didn't even let him speak. Outside, Chihiro's dad asks Mero what was causing the noise. She said it was Ranko that screamed, but Chihiro has gone to check on her and has it under control now, so he has nothing to worry about. Chihiro calms Ranko down and starts to explain what really happened, feeling like he's in the middle of a soap opera. Ria sees Babu outside on the roof, so she crawls out the window wearing only a towel and goes after the cat, looking like a scene straight out of a bizarre dream. Seeing this, Chihiro runs after her, but as he gets outside on the roof, his father stops him and asks if he's trying to get out of cleaning the temple. Chihiro quickly says Babu ran on the roof and he's trying to get him back. Before continuing his chase, he tells Ranko to get their grandpa out of the bathroom. Chihiro runs on the roof but doesn't see Rhea or Babu, so he goes to the back and sees them on the other side of the fence munching on hydrangea leaves. The same leaves Rhea got for the potion used to resurrect Babu. He notices that her eyes have returned to normal and she has regained consciousness, just like Babu. He realizes that the plant she's eating is essential to keep her normal, as it's the same plant that made her a zombie in the first place. Ranko comes out with their grandpa, who usually seems out of it but now starts giving Chihiro detailed instructions on what to do about the medicine to make Rhea stable. He explains that it only slows down the process of decaying and doesn't stop it. He also says she needs to do moderate exercises. Everyone comes to the back and notices Rhea, who's already sad because she thinks they might not let her stay. But Chihiro surprises her by begging his father to let Rhea stay with them, promising to take responsibility. His father contemplates for a bit but ultimately agrees to let her stay, making Rhea very happy. Chihiro starts to document everything that happens to her, from her growth to the side effects of being a zombie. He gets a video camera to record her and see if there are any changes over time. During dinner time, everyone goes down to eat except Rhea, so Mero asks about her and says she prepared her portion and would be glad if she joined them to eat, but Chihiro said she prefers eating on her own. Ranko brings a bag containing clothes and personal belongings which she brought for Rhea. Chihiro asks about underwear, but she says she can't borrow hers, so she'll buy some for her. He gets back to the room and sees Rhea feeding Babu some hydrangea leaves. It's basically like an essential snack for both of them now. Chihiro takes her outside to get some exercise and records the way she walks. They walk down the street, and to everyone, they look like a normal couple. Unbeknownst to them, Rhea's father's henchman was watching them, and when they wanted to cross the road, he tried to run Chihiro over, but luckily Rhea pulled him back just in time to save him. Ranko helps her parents in their family restaurant, going around in her kimono serving and attending to customers. She carries the empty plates to the kitchen where Chihiro is helping out, and when her mom sees them together, she teases them, saying they look cute together. On the way out, Ranko slips, but Chihiro catches her and prevents her from falling. Ranko reminisces about her childhood. She met Chihiro in the temple's graveyard when they were both kids. She was lost and scared, so he came up to help her. She liked him from that moment and wanted to play with him, even though he was only interested in zombies. Later that day, their parents officially introduced them to each other. They sat in the house to watch TV, but unbeknownst to Ranko, it was a zombie movie that got her really scared. She told Chihiro to play with her outside, but he refused, so she went to turn off the TV. They both took a walk, and Ranko asked him what he liked. Apparently, the only thing he likes aside from zombies is food. They walked by a tree, and Chihiro started digging to see if he could find a zombie there. Other boys saw him and laughed at the fact that he was playing with a girl because he didn't want to play with them, so he ran away crying. She went looking for him, but couldn't find him because he was hiding behind a grave. Ranko and Chihiro both go out to make some deliveries. They deliver a package to Chihiro's dad, who scolds him for being lazy and tells Ranko to use him as much as she wants. On their way, Ranko asks why he's so lazy, and he says he's just worried about Rhea. Ranko thinks he has feelings for Rhea, but he tells her that he doesn't. They meet Mogi and Yatsutaka, who scream and ask why girls are only attracted to Chihiro, even though he's a zombie fanatic. He asks if they're really on a date, but Chihiro says they aren't. Yatsutaka gets jealous that Chihiro goes so well with both Rhea and Ranko. After their initial meeting, Ranko and Chihiro met again 2 years later. When she was 6, they moved to Shiyu City, where Chihiro lived, and her mom would occasionally invite Chihiro over to play with his cousin Ranko. They stayed in Ranko's room to play, but Chihiro kept reading a zombie book. Ranko went to sit at the dining table, and her mom told her that she could rent an anime to watch with Chihiro. In the video store, Chihiro took a zombie video instead of an anime, which Ranko wasn't happy about, so on their way home, she snatched it from him and ran back to the store to return it. She encountered a vicious dog along the way. Chihiro ran and tried to leave Ranko, but he summoned the courage, picked up a metal pipe, and chased the dog away. They went home together to watch the zombie movie, and Ranko realized that she still liked her cousin. Yakutsuka says he won't forgive Chihiro unless he introduces him to some cute girls. Ranko and Chihiro continue their delivery, and she tells him to hold her hand as they walk. She asks him if he remembers when they first held hands, and surprisingly, he tells her about it. She's trying to look tough, so she says she doesn't remember the details. After they're done with all the deliveries, Ranko tells Chihiro that he can go home, but before he does, she pins him to the wall and takes her face closer to his, but doesn't kiss him. She tells him not to kiss someone just because they're in the mood, even if it's the perfect time to kiss them. She then runs away. It's dinner time and everyone is seated around the table, including Ria. Chihiro records Ria to keep track of the changes in her body. She's eating only hydrangea leaves, which makes Chihiro's dad ask if she's a vegetarian. Chihiro writes about how Ria lives now. She doesn't sweat and also doesn't need to use the toilet. She also doesn't need sleep either. Babu coughs up a ball of hydrangea leaves and he records Ria, trying to see if she'll do the same. Ria says that as long as he records, she wants to do things a normal girl would, so he takes her to the mall. She tries on different clothes until she finds the one she likes. Ranko goes to the bathhouse to relax in the hot water, contemplating life and Chihiro's endless concern for Ria. Meanwhile, Mero and her friends also show up to soak in the therapeutic heat, probably discussing the latest middle school drama. After changing into fresh clothes, Rhea and Chihiro stroll around the mall together, unaware of the henchmen lurking around like bad guys in a poorly scripted action movie. Chihiro tells Rhea about the special cloth he got for her, which can keep her body from rotting in the heat if filled with dry ice. A romantic gesture that's a bit on the chilly side, literally. Rhea thanks Chihiro for thinking about her, but when she cries, she doesn't see any tears because, well, zombies can't cry. She cryptically tells Chihiro that there's a lot he doesn't know about zombies, leaving him to ponder over the dinner menu. As Chihiro heads off to satisfy his food cravings, creating the perfect distraction, the henchmen see their chance to strike. Enter Yatsutaka, attempting to whisk Rhea away to safety like some clumsy hero from a B-movie, only to be thwarted when Rhea refuses to leave. The henchmen resort to drastic measures, covering her mouth and trying to carry her off, but they underestimated her newfound zombie strength. Rhea effortlessly knocks them down, using a bench like it's her own personal wrecking ball, leaving them sprawled on the ground like a bunch of fallen dominoes. Chihiro, oblivious to the chaos unfolding, finally exits the mall and witnesses Rhea in action, swinging a bench with the henchmen scattered around her like unfortunate pins in a bowling alley. Before he can fully process what's happening, the henchmen snatch Chihiro and haul him off to face Rhea's father, setting the stage for an unexpected heart-to-heart chat with the family's less-than-loving patriarch. Mero diligently sweeps the temple's surroundings while her dad drops the bombshell that he'll be leaving for a while, adding a touch of mystery to their familial dynamics. He praises Chihiro for showing signs of reliability, a trait as rare as finding a zombie at a fashion show. Mero, ever stoic, doesn't react. Maintaining her poker face, she could probably win a marathon of staring contests. Later that night, as she settles into bed, Mero reflects on her dad's words. She notices a glimmer of change in Chihiro beyond his usual zombie obsession and laziness. Perhaps there's hope for him yet, or maybe it's just a phase before he returns to digging up the garden in search of undead neighbors. Meanwhile, Mero and her friends gather in a room after school, diving into a pool of conspiracy theories like they're secret agents on a mission to uncover the truth. They discuss how zombies might be real and living among us, with their suspicious art teacher topping the list of suspects. One friend claims to have witnessed her feeding raw meat to something in her bag and taking a nibble herself, proof that even educators have peculiar hobbies, though this one seems straight out of a horror flick. They decide to stake out the art room like amateur detectives on stakeout duty, but their stealth skills could use some work because in a classic comedy of errors, their cover is blown when something, probably Mero's clumsiness, gives them away. The art teacher catches them red-handed, or rather raw meat-handed. Instead of detention, they get a ride home in the teacher's car, where she reveals the truth behind her odd behavior. It turns out she's just a passionate caretaker of an alligator and suffered a bizarre dietary mishap involving pig liver. Lesson learned: never judge a teacher by the contents of her lunchbox. In another escapade, one of Mero's friends, on a quest for truth and possibly a good story, investigates a foul smell and encounters what she believes to be zombies. It turns out to be a case of mistaken identity. Those bones were just props for a new ramen recipe. They even offer her a taste, proving that sometimes culinary experiments can be pleasantly surprising, unlike a zombie apocalypse. And they were sitting together in the playground when Mero tells them that there's a zombie living in her house. Her friends get curious and start to ask for evidence, but she can't give them, so she just tells them about Rhea. She said Rhea doesn't eat people and is a vegetarian, which is unlike anything they would have thought. She decides to leave because she has to go get some things in the market. When she gets home, she hears her brother and Ranko having an argument about watching zombie movies. She goes to the graveyard and drops some offerings at her mother's gravesite, just like her brother did. After a while, Rhea meets her there and asks why she's in the graveyard, and she says she came to visit her mother's gravesite. She praises Mero for being the one to take care of their house and everyone. Rhea tells Mero that she doesn't mind helping with the house chores, and at that moment, Mero gets memories of her mom. Rhea notices her face is red and tries to check if she has a fever, but can't tell the temperature difference because she's a zombie. Mero feels shy and runs away but falls, so Rhea helps her put a bandage around her knee. She narrates the story to her friends, who can't believe a zombie could be that nice. Chihiro is tied up in a room when a maid comes in to offer him a drink. He complains about being tied up, but no one listened to him. Then Rhea's mom came in. She starts asking about his relationship with Rhea, wanting to know if they've gotten past the kitchen stage, and then starts to call Rhea a monster that would eventually rot away. Chihiro asks why anyone would talk about their daughter in such a manner, and she reveals that she isn't Rhea's mom but her dad's second wife. She tells him of how Rhea's dad, Danichiro, was supposed to marry a maid from the house, so she came in when he was in college and tried to make him fall for her, but he didn't. Instead, he fell for a very young and frail girl who attended a competition he participated in. Although his family was against the marriage, he ignored them and married her, but she died after giving birth to Rhea, which devastated him. He got really sick and lost a lot of weight, and everyone thought he'd die, but she was the one who took care of him. Eventually, they got married, but since then, he hasn't accepted or made love to her. He has always been obsessed with Rhea, as he sees her as a remnant of his deceased wife. He spent most of his time with her, ignoring his actual wife. She even brought up the idea of going on a honeymoon, but Danichiro took Rhea along. After a while, Danichiro told her to stop asking for his love and revealed his true obsession with his daughter. She showed Chihiro her body and tried to get him to comfort her, but he ignored her, saying he's only interested in zombie girls. A maid came to take Chihiro away to where Danichiro was waiting for him. The lights turn on and he saw pictures of Rhea all around, which her father took. Danichiro thanked Chihiro for taking Rhea away because now his love for her has intensified, but at the same time, he can't forgive him. Danchiru took Chihiro to his dojo for them to fight and see who's worthy of protecting Rhea. Rhea rushed to her house in a cab to rescue Chihiro, but was captured and tied down by the maids. She orders them to release her, but they say they're following her dad's orders. They dress her up in different costumes against her will while they enjoy themselves. In the dojo, Danchiru wants Chihiro to fight him and tells him that he can use any sword he wants and any martial arts skills, but Chihiro doesn't know any of that, so he tries to play smart by manipulating Danchiru. He says there's no point in fighting, but instead they should allow Rhea to stay with who she wants. Rhea gets tired of the maids dressing her up and embarrassing her, so she breaks the shackles used to hold her down and runs to find Chihiro. As she enters the dojo, she sees that her dad has stabbed Chihiro. Blood starts to drip from Chihiro's body on the floor, but immediately when he sees Rhea in the bunny costume, he gets so excited. Rhea asks how he's not feeling any pain. He says it's probably the adrenaline, but he remembered when Rhea licked his injury and thinks her saliva must have gotten into his bloodstream and weakened his pain receptors. Danchiru tried to stab him again, but this time Rhea blocked it with the sword she pulled out of Chihiro. She tells him that if he wants to keep fighting, he has to face her. He asks Rhea why she's doing this, and she says she's happy being with Chihiro. He tells her that they'll go to America to find a cure, but she still prefers staying with Chihiro. Danchiru agrees and hands his daughter over to Chihiro while he goes to find a cure for her. After a while, Chihiro passed out from losing a lot of blood, so the maids took him to a room, patched him up, and treated him. He woke up to see everyone around him and Rhea in a nurse costume which she wore because the maids told her that he would like it. Ranko rushes into the room crying, but sees that he's okay, so she calms down. She sees Rhea in a nurse costume and scolds Chihiro for making her dress up like that. She then properly introduces herself. She says she's Chihiro's human fiancé, but he denies it because he doesn't remember agreeing to that when they were kids. Ria sees the connection between both of them and notices that she likes Chihiro too. Now that Danchiru has entrusted Ria to Chihiro, he feels that he has to take it more seriously. At dinner time, everyone's eating, and their dad asks what Ria is eating. Mero said since she's a vegetarian, she used hydrangea leaves to make stir-fry and soup for her. Chihiro feels that her father's getting suspicious because hydrangea leaves are the only thing he has seen Ria eating. Chihiro takes Ria out for a walk and thinks of how he can preserve her body longer. He has no source of information except his grandpa, who's mostly an idiot but once in a while knows what he's saying. He tells Ria that he wants to take her to more places but he can't. She appreciates everything he has been doing for her. On their way, they see a poster about the fireworks display that would be happening the next night, and Ria says she has always wanted to see the fireworks, so Chihiro tells her that they can go see it tomorrow night. At home, Mero asks why he's not letting Ria go to school, and he says he can't because of health issues. Even though she looks fine, there's a lot going on. At night, it started raining, and they couldn't go see the fireworks, so Chihiro apologized. Ria tells him to take her next year if she's still alive by then. At school the next day, Chihiro and Ranko discuss the fireworks and decide to have one for themselves at the temple, so at night, Ranko brings the fireworks and everyone is dressed up except Ria. She goes upstairs to help Ria put on her kimono. Ria asks about her relationship with Chihiro and she says they didn't get along well initially as kids, but with time Chihiro proved to have more good sides than bad sides. Ranko tells Ria that she looks like she's still alive and no one would notice that she's a zombie. Ria tells her that she doesn't know how long she'll be there because her body is slowly decaying, even though it's not noticeable. Ria asks Ranko if she likes Chihiro and she says she does. Ranko asks the same and Ria says she doesn't know and she feels Chihiro only likes her because she's a zombie, but Ranko tells her not to think so little of herself. So they become friendly rivals. They all go outside to set off fireworks and also play with firecrackers. Ria tells Chihiro that she's okay living with him. The next day, Ria goes home to get some things because she wants to go back to school. After packing her things, her stepmother stopped her and told her she won't expel her from school and also won't be of any help from now on, which she agreed to. On the way home, Chihiro asks why she wants to go back to school, and she says she can't be a normal girl if she doesn't go to school. So he tells her to be careful and protect her body. Chihiro tells Ria that he wants her to stay alive for as long as possible, and in return she says she wants to do a lot of things for as long as she can. Chihiro gets up to walk a bit, and as Ria does, she feels something in her chest. She starts to stagger, and as she gets close to Chihiro, she grabs him and bites him as they both fall.